I ran across these lines from Putin in Peterson's article, and I wanted to toss them out there to you guys and just listen. And now, by no stretch of the imagination am I saying Vladimir Putin's a great guy. He's a killer, and he's an autocrat, and he is a brutal dictator. But it's very interesting, some of the things he says. So again, this is an excerpt from a speech he gave on October 21st, 2021. See if any of this sounds familiar to you. Some people in the West believe that an aggressive elimination of entire pages from their own history, reverse discrimination against the majority in the interest of the minority, and the demand to give up the traditional notions of mother, father, family, and even gender. They believe that all of these are the mileposts on the path towards social renewal. We have a different viewpoint. Putin's here talking about Russia. At least the overwhelming majority of Russian society has a different viewpoint. We believe that we must rely on our own spiritual values, our historical tradition, and the culture of our multi-ethnic nation. The advocates of so-called social progress believe they're introducing humanity to some kind of a new and better consciousness. But Russia has been there already. The Bolsheviks also said that they would change existing ways and customs, and not just political and economic ones, but the very notion of human morality and the foundations of a healthy society. The destruction of age-old values, religion, and relations between people, up to and including the total rejection of family, encouragement to inform on loved ones, all this was proclaimed progress. By the way, was widely supported around the world back then and was quite fashionable, same as today. By the way, the Bolsheviks were absolutely intolerant of opinions other than their own. Couple more lines. Looking at what's happened, again, this is Vladimir Putin. This is a speech he gave in October of 2021. Vladimir Putin sounding far more like an American conservative here than a whole lot of American conservatives right now. Looking at what is happening in a number of Western countries, we're amazed to see the domestic practices we left in the distant past. The fight for equality and against discrimination has turned into aggressive dogmatism bordering on absurdity, when the works of the great authors of the past, such as Shakespeare, are no longer taught at schools and universities because their ideas are believed to be backward. The classics are declared backward and ignorant of the importance of gender and race. In Hollywood, memos are distributed about proper storytelling and how many characters of what color or gender should be in a movie. This is even worse than the agitprop department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Those were the political propagandists. And it goes on. It's absolutely a fascinating excerpt from a Russian autocrat who is expressing essentially conservative ideas. That's profoundly unexpected in general. But Caleb, I wonder if Putin is actually speaking from experience, having lived through, I mean, he was the KGB, having lived through what the Bolsheviks set up, this horrible communist system, this horrible system that's centered on leftism. It sounds like he actually saw it and has learned from it, maybe.
So Dennis Prager has this thing that he says that I think is right on the money here, which is the left destroys everything it touches. And Putin is smart enough to know that. Even the Soviet state. Leftism is so rotten to its core, is so divisive and turns people into these, helpless complainers that he sees the risk that it poses to even Russian society writ large.
Yeah.
So there is this weird dichotomy where you're like, they have total state control and he's like, the number one guy. But I think he's learned the lessons of history, as you suggest, and knows that a huge threat, an existential threat, is leftism itself.
Bridget, is it weird to hear the leader of the former Soviet Union, a man who has killed who knows how many people, possibly personally, talking about how essential family is and traditional notions of gender are? Is that, did you see that coming?
I did not see that coming at all, honestly. It makes you really take a step back and think, if our country right now doesn't hold those values to their core, but like you just said, that type of leader who's killed how many people holds that to his core and speaks on it, it just makes you really take a step back and think, where am I living right now?
How far out of sync are we?
Yeah, and to think about where we did come from the United States, and we've just curved a total 180.
Yeah.
And it's very scary, definitely.
I mean, this reads like something George Will might have written back in the 80s.
George Will's my guy. Love George Will.
You know, it's the idea, essentially, that he wrote the book Statecraft as Soulcraft. It's the idea that, okay, government can do good to promote good values. And right now we have government promoting absolutely wretched values every which way. So again, to be clear, we're no huge fans of Vladimir Putin here, and Russia is by no means a straight up republic or democracy right now. It's the election, best we can tell, the elections are at least somewhat rigged. The oligarchs are in control. It is not a model for where we want the United States to go, but it is very interesting. The autocrat who went through the Cold War and saw how rotten to the core leftism is coming out and talking about traditional values, faith, the essentiality of the family. And those, by the way, are things communists rejected completely. So Putin is sort of a post-communist Russian who I think is trying to figure out how to hold his country together, and he thinks traditional values are one of the best ways to do that. And that is true. Traditional values are one of the best ways to hold a country together. And our country is flying apart at the seams.